How you doing, everybody? I'm Jim Ladd, and for the next hour, I'm going to be your host for one of the first of what I'm sure will be many, many interviews to come of a new band known as Toto. Now, although the group itself is new, the individual players have already appeared on some of rock and roll's finest albums with many of music's best players. So for the next 60 minutes, you and I are going to meet two of the 6 members who have banded together to create their music in Toto. To do this, just say your names real clear, because this gets transcribed on paper.
Right.
And they have to match the names with the voice.
Jeff Porcaro.
David Paich.
It's pronounced P-A-G-E?
Paich.
No,
Paich.
no. Paich.
We have a set of prepared answers.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Excellent, because I have no questions prepared, so that'll be a big help.
Right. Ask us this question.
Question number 1.
You know, people say, what do your songs mean or something, and I get lost. I can't explain like any stories.
David, are you going to tell me that you are not good at talking about the tunes that you write, since I specifically asked to have a writer up here?
I'm not good at explaining like what the song is about. You know, I mean, a tune like Hold the Line, you know.
I want to ask you first off, when you guys came out, I was having phone calls to the point where I almost began to think that they were salting these in. Like, you know, you guys or the record company or somebody was getting their friends together, which is not totally unheard of, and going, you call them up and ask for a request. Because I had never heard of Toto in my life, and all of a sudden there's 15 people.
There's a real good explanation for that, as far as I'm concerned. Is Dave and I are 24, and my brother and Steve Lukather just turned like 21. And we're all really well known as far as everything from local high schools as being used to play every prom at every high school. I mean, everybody in our industry that we work with and within sessions, and my sister's friends, and you know, the whole San Fernando Valley thing is Toto oriented. Thank God we weren't studio guys who became a band. I mean, that's what makes me feel that much more honest about our band, is the fact that all these people who have known us since they followed when we were in rock bands in high school, playing Hendrix tunes to our own stuff, who knew we had dreams of one day being a band, can appreciate that. Like, this is a hometown for us. So that kind of takes off the weight off of this, well, here you are, a new band, and you're studio guys. I mean, that's why it's more for real and sincere to us.
David, Jeff, and the other members of Toto had already, at a very young age, earned a great reputation in L.A. as session players. It is obvious that growing up in musical families and beginning work as young as they did was a huge help in learning their craft. But it has also become a hindrance for them because of how some people perceive the intent behind uniting in Toto.
Our reaction to people saying, how is it the transformation of session players, whatnot, to the doing the album? I mean, to this, I mean, we were brought up here, so doing session work was a way in LA that you saw from your peers to make a living in this town if you lived in Southern California, as far as if you were a musician and you lived here and that was your gig. But we always wanted to have this band, and so friends, you know, who are of our age and whatnot, have always been waiting for that.
Right. Everyone kind of thinks the bottom line is like we got together out of the studio thing, you know. As far as I'm concerned, I was never the real top studio player ever, you know, was always, you know, drifting around playing on a few hit records here and there.
Pardon me, but when David and Jeff talk about a few hit records here and there, it's really a little more than that.
My records started with probably Diamond Girl with Seals and Crofts, which I did that album and 2 or 3 more albums after that. You know, got to start writing strings. They allowed me like total freedom, you know. Did some work with Steely, Black Friday, Dr. Wu, Night by Night on Pretzel Logic. Got a chance to work with some real great people. I worked with Neil Diamond, made 2 albums with him. Strice, and just getting to work with, real fortunate to get to work with a lot of great artists. So you get into that line of, that standard of thinking, you know. I can't even remember all this. Joe Cocker, Leo Sayer, Boz Scaggs. I played with Boz Scaggs.
We already know that, David. It's also not in alphabetical order.
Right.
So how about you? What is this list and litany of...
I did a couple cuts on Pretzel Logic with the Dan. I did all of the Katy Light album with the Dan. Jackson Browne, The Pretender, did that album. The stuff with Boz. Streisand, her last 3, 4 albums, whatever. Hall & Oates, you know, list of people.
The song Girl Goodbye reminded me kind of, not only sound-wise, musically, of Hall & Oates, but also they have a tendency to do this trick lyrically, where at first listen it sounds like, oh, it's just another boy meets girl, breaks up song. And then all of a sudden you listen to it again and there's a whole nother thing going on.
I got really aware of that working with Steely Dan. You know, all of a sudden, here you hear these tunes, but like, you better check the lyrics out a little bit closer.
But when we cut Girl Goodbye, that was real two-faced, that tune. I mean, the chorus was real obvious, well, it's goodbye girl, goodbye, you know, and it had the real Philadelphia bounce to it on the chorus. And the verses we made definitely ice cold.
It's a great contrast, a great
I love
dynamics.
it. I think it's a good cross right down the middle of the line.
I'm Jim Ladd, and we'll be back with David Paich and Jeff Porcaro in just a moment. We're back again with Jeff Porcaro and David Paich of Toto, who both, from the very beginning of our conversation, kept stressing the point that in Toto there are 6 members, and they both like to talk about the other 4. Who's hosting this show anyway? But since you've finally shown some humility here, let's mention the other members.
Right.
Right. Other guys in our band, before I do that, just me and Jeff have been sitting here being interviewed, but the other guys in this band are like, they're incredible guys. I wish that you had time to interview everyone individually, because you'd find, you know,
There are no other members.
You and Jeff, and that's it, man.
Right.
That's, everybody else is a backup band to you guys.
You know, without, you take one member out of this band and it's no longer a band, as far as I'm concerned.
Cool.
Everybody's so specially picked for stage presence and musicianship and overall, you know, humor or lack of humor.
Or like,
We have a little of both.
but that's good. So it really is that. I mean, it's just this combination. That you
Just
guys
this
want.
combination of guys. It's meant to, you know, the whole plan was to keep a band that's together, you know what I mean? That can stay together, that doesn't keep having switching members and all this stuff. It stays together like the Stones have stayed together. You know, something like that, you know? Or to just, you know, think over a 5 or 10 year period, as opposed to, well, like, you know, our guitar player leaves, our singer leaves, we'll just get somebody else, you know? To me, if anybody left in this group, it'd be like, no more Toto, one guy left. Right?
That's
I mean, we had meetings, I mean, because when Toto was first thought up, I mean, okay, now time to take it serious. It was David and I, we did demos, did 4 tunes. We walked around, talked with people, you know, record companies and whatnot. And when it came time to put down the band together, guys like Steve Lukather, our guitar player, and my brother Steve, Dave Hungate, our bass player, all starting great careers in the studio. And to seriously approach guys with this kind of talent, a guy like Steve Lukather, our guitar player, who's a monster writer, who could be his own star himself. He could get a deal himself and have, you know, and blow people away forever. Yet we all had serious discussions, group discussions. Guys, we want to start a group Toto, and it's going to be 6 of us, equal partners. This is what we can do. It can be a vehicle for this and that. And this is the kind of commitment we're going to take. Is everybody ready?
Is there ever a point where, and this is maybe a little bit personal, but where either you or David or you, Jeff, went into your room by yourself one night a little while ago and went, "It's happening!" I mean, did you ever let that out?
Yesterday.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I let that out 8 o'clock at every night in my little room. You know, I always turn around and say that. Really, it's you know, it sounds like, you know, funny to ask, you know, but actually that happens. You can't help but do it, you know, because we're in the spot right now and we like, it's so hard, the competition, I mean, the amount of records released and the talent out there, you know. When you finally do make it, it's just, you know, you can't believe it. I still can't believe it. Right, everybody always tells you it's happening. Triple, quadruple platinum, no problem, you know. That's what everybody says before you've walked in the studio, you know.
No problem.
You know?
Is that right?
Sure. I'll tell you how many guaranteed quadruple albums I've played on that haven't even been released, that are still on the shelf.
Don't know quite what to say.
Rockmaker is really a story probably of every artist or every group that has had this dream held in front of them, you know. All of a sudden they've got a chance to make it, you know, and it's dealing with record companies, you know. Then it, for some unfortunate reason, it doesn't happen or it doesn't last very long. It's totally, you know, an industry song, you know.
Disappointment.
You know.
The guy that was going triple platinum for sure and then doesn't know you 2 weeks down the line.
Exactly. you know, one record of people.
People, I think, like to identify with a band that looks like they may actually like each other, they may actually be friends, you know.
Right. And have a cause, you know, rock and roll, you know, that cause, everlasting cause, you know. Springsteen still has it. I mean, from my perspective, and that's what only I can speak from, you know, to me, that's rock and roll is the angry kid in the street. You know, it's the 60s. It's that, you know, it's never you get up there and smile and sing about, you know, the sunshine and how nice, what a pretty day it is. It's always that in the streets, it's nighttime, you're in the alleyway, that angry cause, you know, that it's going to keep rock and roll alive.
Manuela Run. Is this about a real person? Or again, a fantasy character?
It's, you know, it's exactly fantasy person, you know. Not 100%, you know, it's just a kind of personified story about, you know, maybe an incident or something.
I see. But it wasn't like someone that you knew and...
Yeah, it was actually someone that I did know. But it's like I created a whole, you know, this thing, you know, blew it up out of proportion and...
lied to us, basically.
Exactly.
Toto returns in just a moment. Hello again, everybody. If you just got here, there are 3 things that you should know. Number 1, you're late. Number 2, you're listening to a conversation with Toto. And number 3, in the beginning of this show, both David Paich and Jeff Porcaro asked that I not make them explain the lyrical content of their songs. But there's an interesting line in this, I'll Supply the Love, this song. And I know I'm pulling them out of context here, but the horseman in the sky.
Right.
And I hear the same old 14 reasons.
Right.
This I must ask you, what the horseman in the sky is.
Really, it's like, you know, sitting around daydreaming, you know. It's like I've always been like a daydreamer kind of guy, you know, always just trying, you know, instead of writing songs, I just didn't want Toto's songs to be about, you know, let's get up and dance, or let's make love, and let's do this, and let's do that, you know. Just trying to, you know, those are just kind of things that I think about, you know, and to me, you know, in a love, as abstract as a word like love is, to me, you know, it's just like as fast as thoughts go by in your mind. You know, you may see things that have nothing to do with your relationship that you're in or anything. You know, it's just a, you know.
So this has no, like, deep...
No deep meaning.
One that might have lasted a tenth of a second for him
Exactly.
in a fit of paranoia one night at 3 in the morning.
If that long.
No, and I've seen it happen. I mean, that's because, you know, we play music and there won't be any lyrics to something, and he'll just start, I mean, we may have done something or seen something that night, and there may be a guy walked in by the name of Pacheco or whatever, and you may use that word, I mean, and start making it rhyme and stuff, and it may not have any serious meaning, but for the fact that it just feels good, it was honest, and was for that second, and people can take, you know, kind of guess and play with it any way they want.
I mean, talking about like, I'll supply the love, you supply whatever the song goes, or, you know. Just talking about something like that kind of image. Rather than a guy, you know, that hangs out at the Polo Lounge in Beverly Hills. It's like this cat up in the sky on a winged horse. That's the way I see it, you know.
Let's talk about the Boz Scaggs era for a moment and working with him. Was that, I guess, a very positive thing?
Totally positive.
Yeah. How'd you get to work with him? How'd that begin?
I got to work, I got my break, and Jeff gave me my break in the business. If it hadn't been for him, I would have never have done Silk Degrees, and I would have never been in Toto or something like that, you know. But he was doing Les Dudek at the time. Boz was producing, and they needed a keyboard player. So it's like friends, you know, said, you know, we'd been doing things together, and called me to, you know, asked me to do that. And finished playing on that album and started playing some songs and little things, you know. And Boz asked me if I'd be interested in writing some songs with him, you know, for his next album. He hadn't done an album in about 2 years. I was totally into it because I was writing songs. I was really into writing songs at the time, and not even close to being established as a songwriter. It was kind of hard to get songs recorded.
And Boz was about one of the first artists that us as studio musicians that we had worked for on his album that gave us unbelievable freedoms as far as playing on the album. we were all real tight together on making that album. It was like, you know, a unit.
You know, I'll tell you something, and this is not a stroke this reality, it just reminded me that when I did Boz, he made a big point. I don't recall if he mentioned names, but he did go on and on and on and on about he finally, you know, he got these people and it was really good, and naturally when I do this show, I'm going to go back and see if I can pull that out.
I'm from San Francisco, and coming into Los Angeles is a pretty awesome experience when you're dealing with the top studio players. They occupy kind of a high place in the scheme of things down here. And it just opened me to all sorts of possibilities. I could depend on a high level of confidence in every chair in the studio. And the fact that I was going to get as much feedback from them as they expected from me, and we were all working on the same level. My knowing what I wanted to create, what I wanted to achieve, and their being responsive and able to give me not only what I wanted, but their own interpretation, just opened great imaginative things for me.
Will you work with him again, do you think, Boz? Or do you know?
I've worked with him since then. I did like the next album after, and I went up to San Francisco about 2 months ago with he and Joe Walsh and myself. Just did some demos. In fact, he was over the house last night. He came into town, and he's getting ready to do another album. But you know, some of us, you know, will definitely see Toto right now. We used to all work together in the studio. Now that we have our album, within ourselves we've agreed, you know, 2 of us maybe, but when it gets to 3 of us, 4 of us in the rhythm section on an album, we play a certain way together, and we start getting into a certain thing together, and that kind of projects maybe a Toto sound, but we want to keep away from a lot of us performing together on session.
It's not your situation.
Now, here's an intellectual stimulating song, Georgie Porgy.
Right.
Okay. You wrote this when you were 11, right?
Right.
No, I'm just teasing. I'm just teasing you. Did you?
No, actually, probably about 2 years ago. About 2 years ago.
The thing I did dig about is it deals with a side of human nature that is real, and that is being possessive with a lover. Correct?
Right. Exactly.
I love these yes or no answers. You know what I'm saying, Bill?
Right.
So
No, you're doing fine.
is that right? First thing out of this guy's mouth when he sits down is, "Look, Jim, just please don't ask me about any song."
My microphone is just falling into my pants. I think.
That's a cheap way out. You know what I mean? Don't want to answer, so he puts the mic in his pants. That'll definitely be on the show.
Yeah.
Right. It's time for a commercial.
Okay.
Good idea.
We'll take a pause if you want something else to drink or anything.
Sure do.
Okay, good. I'm Jim Ladd, and we're now about to hear from David Paich and Jeff Porcaro about their feelings, and so some of the motivation of Toto, as to what they believe should be rock and roll's direction in the 80s.
More controversial, it's like, it's okay to play rock and roll and be an establishment kind of thing, And, I'm not knocking it at all, but to me, that was always the thing. It was always a paradox, is rock and roll is kind of little anti-establishment, always. It's the meaning of rock and roll. It's long hair and rock and roll, Rod Stewart, and...
See, it's an odd thing, because with the 60s, again, a lot of that anti-establishment and that spark that we had, us against the world, rock and roll against the world and for humanity, a lot of it was to bring people together.
Exactly.
And now that that's happening, which is good, I mean, it's good that straight people are listening to rock and roll, that's nice. But now it's back on rock and roll to push it even further, to keep it going, and as you say, to stay a bit angry all the time.
Right, and I don't mean, that, to me, positive feelings are good too, you know what I mean? I don't mean that you have to be holding grudge all the time, but you can portray an intense emotion. To me, the purpose of music is to at least convey some kind of emotion.
Exactly.
That makes you happy. Then if it does that, it's served its purpose. If it makes you happy, music. I think music should bring your spirits up, and just the fact that it brings all kinds of people together. I mean, if there was no barriers right now, this Russian United States. I mean, Russian kids would be listening to rock concerts with American kids, no question about it. not having any fights. No
It's the old universal language thing, man.
Yeah.
If we didn't speak the
Amen.
same language,
Yeah.
I'd be able to relate to the, girl that caught my eye just through playing or whatever. Exactly, she'd know exactly where I'm coming from whatever was going down on that stage. At least for us performing-wise, there's a message that gets across, and they all want to listen to what the music we're playing, what we have to say.
Never lose a minute.
So you really see rock and roll as being able to spread some like good ideas, or in one way or another, however it does it, it's going to help to get people together.
Yeah, I just thought, that's one of my my arguments is like rock and roll. There's a lot of opportunity to get out to the masses. When you're traveling, you're touring, a kid, no matter what country we're in the world, if there's going to be a concert coming to his town in 2 months, that kid is like spending his hard-earned money on going to that show. He's taking his girlfriend, whatever. I just remember when I was a kid going to concerts, see Hendrix and stuff. I mean, it took me 2 weeks of doing weekend bar mitzvah and weddings, playing drums to be able to take my girlfriend and go over this concert, and that concert would last me 2 years of just thoughts and just daydreaming with my date or just by myself. That experience of that concert. And I think, groups, rock and roll music, especially right now, we're able to travel and go and play many different places. People see you on the TV, it's going through the satellite, you hear the records, and kids are going and experiencing this.
When you consider how influential pop rock music is and rock stars, you know what I mean, with people. It's like, look at the 60s, someone very powerful and a respected figure starts singing about, something like taking drugs or something, and all of a sudden, every little kid that idolizes that person is going around starting to, experiment with drugs or something like that, So you're dealing with a very powerful influence. I mean, when you can get 250,000 people to show up at a festival and turn their backs on the government and say, this is what we're into, is music, and, relaxing for a little bit. It's a powerful thing, and I think you start thinking one day about the responsibilities, like, am I using this as a vehicle here? We're bringing thousands of people, and they're doing, if you're talking about things in songs, people are getting influenced by it, and I think you should have a positive influence people in a positive way with it, instead of, just thinking about, well, let's go dance. Let's always go dance, no matter what's happening. Let's go dance.
So on that note, this has really been enjoyable. You guys, I really wish you a lot of luck. I like your attitude, and you definitely deserve, the shots, so I hope it goes for you.
Well, this is a real enjoyable interview, I mean, if I was going to take an interview that I wanted to hear people hear what I was going to say at all up until now, this is the first interview we've done where I've, have a real positive feeling about what's been said. And
oh, man, thank you for saying it. Good, that's what we wanted to happen.
It's been a total groove, man.
Good. Citizen, of course, got into it. Right when they're saying something nice about the show, you stood up and shook. Anyway, thank you both very much.
All right.
Special thanks for tonight's show are due to Gail Roberts of Gail Roberts Public Relations. Also, my personal thanks to Mike Jensen and to Hope Anthem, Dan Blaylock, and Phil Alexander of Columbia Records. This show was produced and engineered by Bill Levy at Interview Recording Studios in Los Angeles. I hope you enjoyed meeting Jeff Porcaro and David Paich, and that through their vision, you have come to hear them and their fellow players in Toto. I'm Jim Ladd.